Hi everyone, it's Atuksha from Simple Crowdfunding, and in the next series of interviews I'm here today with Kevin Green from Kevin Green Wealth to talk about his property journey, what he's currently seeing in the marketplace and what his predictions are moving forward. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be speaking with you again, Atuksha.
So, Kevin, we've known each other for quite a long time. We met in 2012, which was a very long time ago, and we've been following each other's journeys along the way. And I think you've had a very interesting journey, but what I would love for people to understand is, one, if you can just explain a little bit about who you are first and what your background is, I think that would really help.
Okay, I'll try and make it brief because it changed quite a lot. I'm an ex-dairy farmer who was working on my home farm with my father. I went away to agricultural college, learned how to do farming very well in the new tech age of things as it was then. Mm-hmm. And these ideas didn't sit well with father, so we argued and I left home and stupidly became homeless in 1988. So that was kind of an interesting time. I was on the streets in Yeovil, managed to land a farm management job to my surprise. Then a few months later with Mr. Lawrence of Trill Farm Dairies in Dorset. And I was there for 4 years until my sister passed away. And I was 22. So I came home to the home farm, built the bridge with my father and did all the changes on the farm that we'd originally been talking about and carried on. Many years, got married to a beautiful lady and had 3 wonderful kids. And then I kind of done the farming thing and got a bit bored because I realized I was in primary production and if I stopped working, the money would stop coming in. Mm-hmm. And I'd been reading a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki that had just come out. And it enlightened me a little bit into other possibilities. And I applied for a Nuffield farming scholarship. And this was in 1999 at the age of 37. So traveled the world. My objective was to get out of farming and do something else, but I didn't know what the something else would be. It proved to be property. And I knew nothing about property other than you live in it. And I built a few things on sheds at home and on the farm, things like that. So, but it really resonated with me to take a building that's rough and make it into a nice place for people to live. And today that still gives me the tingles, you know. So I next had to learn how to do it. And I went on a training course with Robert Kiyosaki and learned the property game and became then the #1 owner in private ownership name in UK. So apparently we've got more properties now than anybody else in UK to a single name. So we've done quite well.
That's pretty substantial. And in terms of your area, the majority of your property is focused in Wales?
Yeah, we started in Wales and we mostly concentrate in Wales now. Also in Scotland and also in Northern Ireland. There's some wonderful grant opportunities in Northern Ireland with the housing executive. So we bought quite a few rental stock there and they remain very lucrative today as well. But predominantly South Wales. I haven't touched much the southeast counties. I know your area because the yields weren't there for us quite so well. Mm-hmm. So we stuck to areas where, you know, we want to build that rental portfolio. We have done some flips in southeast. They work very well and trades, but the investments we've kept in high yield areas.
And the majority of the portfolios, your focus was buy to let, is that correct?
Yeah, it's all focusing towards adding to the buy-to-let portfolio, but I tend to trade a lot as well. So we buy and sell at least 1/3 of what we purchase so that we can drive down any capital borrowings on the buy-to-let portfolio. Mm-hmm. That's been, I suppose, the main ingredient that's helped me build a big portfolio is we have traded. We have paid a lot of tax, obviously, because we've traded, but we've managed to clear debt down. I'm in a very lucrative position with hardly any debt at the moment on a large portfolio. So I think that's important to clear debt as quickly as possible.
Yeah, because you had the 3-2-1 rule, didn't you? Which is one of the things I remember from mentorship. Can you explain that to the people listening?
Yeah, it's a bit like Ted Rogers, you know, but for every 3 properties we buy, we keep 2 and we sell 1.
Yeah.
So we're trading a third. And it's so that the profit that we gain from that trade, we can smash down into the investment side of the portfolio, clear down investment debt. And the upside of that is when we clear down the investment debt, obviously the cash flow increases because there's less mortgage liability to pay.
Mm.
And it gets to a situation where there's quite a lot of income coming off the property. So the income itself can drive down capital clearance of debt as well. So it really does work very well.
And that's so that was the property piece, and having done mentorship with you and the team, actually peer-to-peer lending was where we first heard about it, was actually when you were talking about it back in 2013.
Yeah.
And so you've always had a perception of what's coming down the market as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I kind of I joined government advisory board just to be able to look ahead in some instances, because I do like to plan ahead and budget and kind of second guess what governments and the world economy is going to do next, because it hugely affects us. And obviously in this environment of COVID, it's paid off, you know, for myself and my clients. But I think everybody needs to not assume that everything's going to stay the same. You know, obviously markets move, things can change. So I'm always looking at that, usually getting it fairly near. So it's interesting. I find it very interesting.
And with regards to property, obviously, you then pivoted, or you have pivoted, haven't you, into other products and investment types. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's been a bit by accident. And on 3 occasions, and it's ironic, I've been sitting next to a person on a plane. And that person's been very significant to my thoughts going forward. And there was a person who's into bullion trading, buying and selling of gold and silver. And I got very interested on this plane journey towards Singapore. And I found out that Singapore is a tax-free hub for all this as well. And having already got into a situation of good profits in property, you know, it bended my ear. Saving tax or paying no tax legally was the first thing that excited me. And then when I realized property and gold go up the same in value over the years, they're both incredible assets. And it got me really interested, so much so that when I do something, I put 1,000% in, you know. And I did everything to find out about exactly how the bullion markets work, from the coins to the small bars, which are wafers, into the bars, and quickly became engaged in the market. Today, that's paid off big time, because for property investors that's looking at this, the bullion market's an opposite market to property. When property goes down, bullion goes up. And today, classic example, bullion's strong in a world economy that's weak. Property tends to suffer in a world economy like we've got today. And I predict that we will hit some suffering on property. But with the bullion's going from strength to strength, because people want to put their money into a safe investment arena. And gold is always seen as a safe arena by both governments and public and wealth fund managers as well, and people like ourselves who run peer-to-peer businesses. So it's an interesting mix of the two. And I'm really glad that I went into both asset classes rather than just one. And that's the only 2 areas that I invest, is gold and silver and property.
Right. And with regards to your education program, that's developed quite a lot as well, hasn't it? So can you talk to me about your education program?
I don't really like selling anything here, because I'd rather just inform. But what we did on the live trainings, which are finished now, obviously, because of COVID, what we used to do then was a mix of 3 elements: 1, property; 2, bullion; and 3, gemstones, because something else I love on a trade is buying gemstones from Southeast Asia and selling them in Birmingham's Jewellery Quarter for sometimes 5 to 6 times the price. But all of the profits that we make clear down property debt and or bullion debt. So the trades clear down investment debt. So those 3 elements are what have become very popular with my clients. I suppose that's where I differentiate from other property investors, mainly is that I have diversified, like you said, and you and Davin well know that. We've had many conversations in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I suppose we're speaking from many years of experience in the business as well. I didn't start training on the gold and silver till a few years ago, but after many years of being in the business first. So we are speaking from experience of both up and down markets, and we can relay perhaps some of those rules to follow that we've seen to be common rules, you know?
Yeah, and I remember the last conversation we had, which was what, about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, or thereabouts.
Yeah.
You were talking about you thought that there might be changes coming to the property education market. Is
Yeah,
there
I
anything you
hope
can
so.
share about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of scamsters out there. I'm not going to name any names, and they're giving the whole industry a bad name as well. And every man and his dog seems to be doing an online property training webinar at the moment. You know, these
Mm.
names from everywhere, and they're all the so-called experts. The interesting thing is, and it's kind of self-sorting itself out, and I've heard secondhand, I should say, that certain trainers are going bust because they've relied on the income from training to support their lifestyle rather than, as it should be, as it is in our case, the income from the assets themselves to
Mm.
be supporting them. So the liars in the industry, and there are some, who are claiming big property portfolios, etc., are going bust, some of them.
Mm.
And I think that's a great thing. Serve them right. Ha, right? It's going to be black because they've been spinning a lie, and it's the universe coming back and saying, hello, you know, here's your retribution for that. Outside of that, I'm a strong supporter of regulation within the industry. I
Yeah.
think it should be regulated tighter. And I say that from a peer-to-peer background. Both you and I know that the compliance that we have to operate under in our businesses is very, very tight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of compliance there with the FCA. There's virtually nothing. Any man and his dog could be a woman could be a property trainer and a so-called expert overnight and not be penalized for that on the face of it. So there should be some rules and regulations in there. And I believe there's some rumbling in the industry. I know government's busy on everything else at the moment, but I hope that this does come forward and they actually bring in tight regulation to sort out the wood from the chaff, because it's unfair for people to be misled.
Yeah. So because a lot of people are spending life savings and so forth on education, aren't they? And then having nothing at the end of it. Obviously the education, but not having the collateral to then go out and do something with it.
Yeah, I mean, the number one priority, if you're spending money, you've got to make money from it. There's no good spending on a training and not having any investments or trades to show for it, you know. And unfortunately, things, you know, businesses promoted like, oh, you can do deal sourcing, you can do all this, and stuff which sometimes doesn't work too well, is a little bit dodgy for people to invest in, you know. I'm all for investing in yourself, but check people out first, you know. If you're going to part with your hard-earned cash, you want to get a good return on it. And I've looked at that in every area of my life when I've grown business. You know, I never just engage with somebody. I'll check them all out first, inside out, and speak to their customers before I part with any penny of my own money.
Which makes a lot of sense, right?
Well, I think people are too quick to follow the dream and not check people out, you know, and not just in property training, but perhaps in any kind of investment opportunity that comes along. And there's many of them. There's many scams around, as you know. The Caribbean Property Group scam for Harlequins, for instance, for one, that led a lot of people astray. So we've got to check out projects, check out deals, check out the people behind it. And I know Alan Sugar drummed that into many of his mentees, and I'm a great friend with Mark Wright, the winner of The Apprentice, and he's one of our proteges as well. And he keeps on saying that. It's ingrained in him, and I've picked it up. You know, you can't just assume. You've got to predict that everybody is the worst case scenario, and then let it be proved otherwise, you know. And I think that's a good thing in business. I know he's a cantankerous, angry old bugger sometimes, Alan, but I've picked up on some of that, and I do, you know, smile at people, but I think, oh, what are they really like behind that? And I do some work and investigation, you know.
Yeah. Is this doing your own due diligence, isn't it, really?
Well, you know, even 2 days ago, we had an electrician who was starting to take the mickey a little bit in lockdown, up in his prices. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of telling him, we've got no more work for you, Lee.
Yeah.
You know, because somebody starts taking the mickey like that, and I'm very tight on control of the finance side. You know, no invoice gets paid unless I see it first. You know, so Dan is not working from the office here now. She's working from home. She's my CFO. But you know, she will email all of the screenshots through, and I could see some anomalies. Just because I'm not on the jobs so much or at front line doesn't mean I'm not looking at what's happening in the background. And I think that's important. And I picked up on some naughty moves that were there that were costing the business money. So I think all of us have perhaps got a little bit sharper on that because of COVID as well. And yeah, he was gone. You know, he could have remedied the situation, but being arrogant, Sparkies sometimes are the worst of the trades you can deal with. Dare I say it? There's something about them. They should be car park attendants if they didn't have their qualification. Sorry to be blunt, but that's the way I am. You know, most of them are great, but this particular one had been great, but got greedy, you know?
Yeah, and it's a very short-term view, isn't it? Because to do a bad job on one property, if you're then talking about there's another 100, 1,000, whatever that number is in the background, it is a very, very short-term view, isn't it?
Well, you don't cut off the hand that feeds you, do you? You know, you mentioned a little about looking ahead. And, you know, the guy's ego, because I pulled him up, his ego wouldn't allow him then to say, sorry, I've made mistakes and I've overcharged you and I shouldn't have done this. And I wasn't there on those hours when he said he was, because we knew. So some of the Airbnbs, we have cameras on them for the safety, an external camera over the door for our safety, that nothing gets nicked, to be honest. And also, obviously, for the safety of the occupants. But that allows us to monitor who's coming to or leaving the property. When you have proof like that, which I had, and you've got a timesheet that says different, there's problems.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I know it's perhaps stressing on the detail, but it's the detail. If you look after the pennies, the pounds look after themselves, you know, the old saying. It's that detail that matters in business, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, the market was unsure because of Brexit and not having a direction. So at the end, and I don't know if that affected what you saw from a property standpoint. So that was one thing. And then as soon as Boris came in with the majority, it seemed like the market really started picking up again. And then COVID hit. And so what's your view been maybe of the last sort of 18 months in particular, and how has it affected the property market and businesses from your view?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to where we started, really. You know, businesses we have to plan ahead. And if we're planning ahead in an unsure environment, it's very difficult. You know, we're recording this today. It's the 6th today, isn't it? On Sunday, we've got a release coming, hopefully from Boris, on, you know, how the release of lockdown, if it's implemented, is going to work. You know, and I'll be watching that with bated breath, waiting to see, because it's a bit of an unknown. And my view on what's happened is a lot of it was driven by instability through the governments, and the world economy, not just UK government, is a little bit in turmoil at the moment. We're driven predominantly by the US market, and there's lots of shenanigans been going on there with the massive debt that the market carries, and we get directly affected by that in our economy. This is part of the reason why I protected myself and went into bullion as well as property to go into the opposite market, and I'm really glad I did that. And what I saw, like you, in the property market last year, and everybody will bear testament to watching this, was a lot of uncertainty. It got tougher to sell houses. Theresa May, what a shambles, you know. The government was all over the place. There was no direction, and we were letting the European Union just bat us around. And business people like myself wanted a decision, one way or the other. We're either in or out.
Exactly that.
It was
having a direction, wasn't it? That was important.
Yeah, it was. And then Boris come along, like a breath of fresh air, really, because there was decisions being made. He was a bit of the UK Trump, love him or hate him type of thing. But what I liked about it was we were actually going somewhere, and I got quite excited. So did the general public, as you said. And the property market responded to that. And up until the end of January, it was growing. And it was going well. I know you were very busy on your deals, the collective investment deals as well. And we were, at our end, on what we were doing. We were selling properties so easy. And then, bang, we had COVID come in. And it absolutely changed things. The sales side disappeared for a couple of weeks. There was nothing. And people that had pledged to buy were pulling out. One or two that had exchanged contracts wanted to extend the completion, and we were quite happy with that. They were committed on exchange, or, obviously they'd lose their deposit. So they were unsure, and the market went in turmoil. And I found it very interesting times. I half predicted it would happen, but not as soon and as hard. Right. And you've always got to be prepared for turmoil or a crash. We can't all ride on the crest of a wave. What goes up comes down. The property market's always been like that. Every 18 years, there's a height in the market, and every 18 years, on average, there's a down. And it's be very interesting. I don't know if we want to discuss what's going forward, but from this point, I've seen all of a sudden there's an interest in sales. We've had a lot of online activity. Some of the estate agents investors, so the main area we're investing and selling now, are operating either small skeleton crew from the estate agency or remotely, but there's activity coming back into the market. And it's only happened in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And it's quite enlightening. The new normal, people are getting used to, as it were. And the business is trying to force the barriers open as to trades being taken place again. People still want to move houses, or they want to go forward. On the economic side with people, generally isn't that bad. I know there's some being affected terribly, but people I've spoken to, and mainly our tenants, and we have a lot of them. A lot of them are employed. They've been furloughed. They're on 80%, but they're not spending like they used to.
Exactly.
They're quite strong, and they've got time, and they're thinking, what do I want to do next? I'd like to buy a property. I'd like to buy this one. And we've had tenants, unprecedentedly, the amount of them phoning us up and saying, if you ever sell the property or you think of it, we'd want to buy it, even in this so-called terrible time. So there's a lot going on, which is focusing people's minds. I think we're all looking towards the future, whoever we are. We've got a lot of time on our hands, some of us, and we're using that perhaps to think ahead. And I think it's a good time to plan for outcomes.
And with regards to COVID, in terms of property transactions, we're seeing the same actually. Things are starting to move. Yeah. And actually we're getting requests for larger deals to be funded through alternative finance, because the traditional finance sources are still tightened up a little bit, and they'll probably stay like that for a little bit. With regards to things like business operations, it's given people a chance to review everything, hasn't it?
Yes.
And do you think there will be a change in terms of how people continue to operate, having sort of maybe seen a light?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from my own perspective, definitely. I suppose more time with my partner, who would travel with me anyway, more time at home, me time, has really focused my mind. I've been using these hands a lot, fixing up old tractors and doing stuff I like doing, and some of you, I know you've seen pictures on Facebook and commenting and things like that. And I don't want to be traveling all over the world teaching people about property and bullion. I don't have to do it. So we went online and did a little bit because the bottom-up demand was so big. I've actually got in process now some free webinars running, which actually sell into then a full package if people want it at a very low price, because we haven't got the overheads that we'd have on a live training. So when we look at my time and the changes for me, I'm looking at, well, I'm 56 now, you know, one of my best friends has died from COVID, Peter Burnett, and it makes you focus and you think, flipping heck, what are you going to do? Well, I don't need to, I've paid back to society. I don't need to be doing hours and hours of flying and going to seminars and all this all over the world. I know we got to the top position on that, but I don't need to do that anymore. And I've made the decision not to do that anymore.
Mm.
So the second thing we've done is really looked at costs, bottom line costs, in every area of the business. I know we normally look anyway, but we've looked even more in depth. And a lot of the stuff we were running around for, technology could do for us. And we've learned that during the lockdown, or the partial lockdown that we're under, because we have to still service our tenants. So I can see tech playing a much more major part and cutting down actual running on the ground, feet on the ground. And we're doing this with property sales. We're doing very explicit videos of the properties, photographs, and sending those to the prospective buyers before they come and view, so they're not wasting their time or our time.
Which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because
Yeah,
there are virtual tours and all sorts of things at the
yeah,
moment
I mean,
happening.
we're going to continue doing that because it's very time efficient, and you're getting the very interested people only then on that perhaps one viewing. Hey, we've done the same with the letting. So if we're letting a property, exactly the same thing. And that's got very busy, the lettings market. You know, I know the government's saying don't move unless you have to. We've got inquiries coming out of our ears for people that want to move into different properties. And the big focus at the moment is a big garden. They want a property with a big garden. I wonder why. You know,
well, exactly.
Lockdowns changed that. So you know, it's I think we're all of us going to be looking through different eyes and looking at where we can save money. We can perhaps have a bit better quality of life as well. And certainly that's a massive change on my part.
And Kevin, you mentioned with regards to sort of changing the structure, and you're doing more webinars. Before I forget, there are, because you run a couple of streams, you've got webinars coming up, what, for both property and for gold and silver?
Yeah, we started with property 2 weeks ago, and it absolutely flew. So the property side, we're looking a lot at how you buy without using your own capital. We haven't gone down the peer-to-peer route on this because people want quick access to cash, and to get regulated at the moment is virtually impossible to set up your own peer-to-peer. But we have gone down the repossession rescue route. And there will undoubtedly be more repossessions in a few months' time, because people are taking a payment holiday on their mortgage now, perhaps not budgeting ahead quite like they should be, would be my prediction. And there's going to be problems with people who are perhaps losing their jobs, can't keep their own home. So, you know, we've got a solution for that to help them. As you know, we've been running repossession rescue for a long time. And the property webinar, that seems to be, that part of it seems to be very much of interest to people, of how to do it. And basically, where you can trade these properties out by being an agent in the middle and build up quite a large pot of money, so you can simply cash buy or buy to let for yourself, you know? And so the webinar I put up on that is on kevingreen.uk. If anybody wants it, it's free. There's obviously at the end an offer to speak to a member of my team if they want to discuss any further packages, because there's a small fee, very small fee, which goes to charity if they want the whole of the series. So by all means, have a look at that. It's kevingreen.uk on the property side. And then last week, we rolled out the gold and silver. So I filmed especially for the webinar, and that's gone mad as well. So I think it's because I was holding up a gold bar and a silver bar. People go, oh, what's that? And then that gets their interest. And then they click in and fill out the registration page for the webinar. So that's got a long address on it. Perhaps if I get Thenos to send you the link.
Absolutely. I'll add it to the description for the video.
Yeah, that'd be the best, rather than me read it out. I can see it in front of me here. It starts with Kevin Green, but it's a bit of a long one. So yeah, if we do that, that'd be better. And yes, and interestingly enough, the people who have been on property have immediately looked on this one. They've loved the property bit. They've got into that. So they're kind of following in my footsteps, realizing that both markets, when they come together, form a very powerful entity.
And it's balancing the portfolio, isn't it? Ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, there's no major differences. We buy the bullion under fair market value. We sell it on for profit. We hold it as investment. We've got income off it. So, property and bullion are very, very similar. As far as protecting your assets, the one thing that really resonates with me with bullion is if we hold the bullion in a vault outside UK, we've got a different structure that's protected, that's not linked to a financial institution or a government, so it can't be touched. We don't know with property even what the rules and regulations will be in future. There could be some stupid rule that controls us as landlords and landladies,
as with the changes they had in Spain.
Yeah, I mean, ridiculous. And what happened in Southern Ireland with the Part 4 arrangement, where it's very difficult to get tenants out of a property, So, I mean, we don't know. Governments can be stupid, we know that. And we've got to be prepared for that, Thankfully, we've got some good lobbying bodies in place, and the NLA and RLA, they're coming together, and they've come together. And hopefully we'll have a good voice there. But never underestimate how stupid governments can be. And what will come next will be my view. And I plan for that, We don't want all our eggs in one basket.
Of course, makes a lot of sense. And then with regards to the outlook, I suppose, so you mentioned you think property might take a bit of a knock.
Yes. Yeah, on percentages, I've done a lot of workings on this, and I was thick in school. Academically, I'm not clever, but I'm quite good on statistics, and they excite me. So it seems to be an area that is my forte, that and law, the two things I love. So look at the statistics on trends and the most likely outcome, which is driven by the pessimism from the public, driven by government actions and COVID. I predict that by the end of this year, we'll have a 5% drop in capital values on average, which is a hell of a drop between now and then. I don't predict a major crash because governments have got wise with the policies that they've got and the safety they've got in place. And if the property market did totally crash, then the world would not function. We've learned in the past. So working with governments like I do, especially with my work with Edwina Hart, who's the business governor in Wales, it's been enlightening to see that they're very aware of that and there's safety nets in place. We've got the European Monetary Fund now, which we didn't have before. I believe, and I know this won't sit well with everybody, we've done the right thing in Brexit. We've done the right thing to become independent at this time. It's actually come out in our favour. So we've got a little bit more of a isolated and protected market for the property because of it, and our own currency because of it, which is very important when we start looking at the quantitative easing that's taking place and the devaluing of currencies across the world. So I believe the euro will take a bigger hit than the pound in that instance. So it's quite a difficult one to plan for, I know, but I don't see a massive crash coming. I see it easing about 5%. And, we'll see whether my prediction is right or wrong by the end of this year. But I see renting remaining very, very strong.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a stream. If you pull something back in a market, it will respond. So the rental demand for people where it's not strong, landlords will bounce back. People have to have that place to live. And a lot of people will be tentative and not buy what they're going to buy, yet they'll rent. So, when there's a softening in the sales market, you often get the opposite response in the rental market. I've seen that every time. So that market will remain strong, very strong. I think you need a mix in the portfolio of trading and investing. And that's say so, but bear in mind this softening is coming. The lenders are reflecting that in their security demand, lowering of LTV and interest rates at the moment. So you can see the writers on the wall there for a drop, and I'm surprised if it doesn't.
Yeah, it's very true. I suppose the saving grace is we still have a shortage of housing stock in the UK, and so new homes still need to come to market, and there will always be a requirement for housing, won't there?
Yes, I mean, Rick's, where I get my statistics from on that is Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. If we go back 6 years ago, just from the top of my head, the shortage of housing in UK for rented market was 160,000 homes. Now that increased to the figure we've got today is over 200,000. So we are short, correct, and I totally agree with you, of over 200,000 rented properties in the UK. And supply demand will obviously play a factor in that for the investors who are watching this, or potential investors, in that we have got that strength. Building and planning has relaxed. So it might counter that. The planning guidance rules, which were 1,000 pages long, are now 100 pages. So the 10-country planning act is much more easy to understand. And developers have been encouraged to build more homes to try and take up this shortfall, you know. And some of that needs to be affordable housing. And I'm a developer as well. So, I mean, we're in that sector. And you can see, you know, the government's really trying to encourage us with loans, incentive loan schemes, or incentivized loan schemes, and the rules themselves. So, but I can't see enough houses being built in the next 5 years. So I agree with you that supply demand's going to keep a more healthy market than perhaps other countries.
Yeah, which may help with the bounce back. So and restrict the drop on the other side, right? So
yeah, absolutely. I think the other side of it going into 2021, I think that we'll be settling down. I don't think COVID's going to go away very quickly. That's going to be with us a long time, and I don't think we'll get back to as we were before. I think if you're thinking that's going to happen, you're a fool. I think there's going to be a new normal, as they call it, and the markets will be like that as well. I think we need to be prepared for that. But the great thing about any market, a free market, that is, it always corrects itself. You'll get some wastage, some will leave the marketplace. Others who are in it and doing it perhaps proactively will do very, very well. And that's always been the way with markets, you know. So I think if you are proactive, and if you're watching this, you're proactive because you're taking information like I do. I watch all sorts. And then form your own views at the end of it. Don't be swayed particularly by one person. I think you've got to take information from everywhere, and then make up your own mind and go with your gut instinct as well. On top of that, where you can't make a decision. You know?
Of course, yeah, of course. And Kevin, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is you are very spiritual, aren't you? You believe in what goes around comes around as such. Can you share a little bit about your mindset in that regard?
I suppose I'm very lucky in that I've always had good health. And I think part of the reason is the mindset and feelings or anything I've got, if you like. Whatever happens, I always say, it'll be fine. I'll always be fine, you know? And I've been in some very dire situations, being homeless. And I think working with Make-A-Wish and Carers Trust, my two favourite charities, I see a lot of adversity. And it reminds me how lucky we are to be fit and healthy, that's the first thing, of sane mind. And people sometimes moan and complain too much, you know? So my mindset of the spirituality side is that, yes, I know I'll always be fine. And I love life, you know? I tried not working and kind of doing this retired thing. I hated it. You know? So even now when I've kind of got time on my hands, I stuff and doing stuff. I've planted a massive vegetable patch this year, and that connects you with Mother Earth again. I'm enjoying it, you know, and I think that's why I enjoyed being a farmer, because spirituality is very linked to being connected with what's around you, and smelling those smells, listening to the birds, and being very aware of your environment. And I think sometimes in London, in particular, when I'm working in London, we can forget all about that, being stuck on that tube, masses of people, like an android, you know?
Yeah, so true.
That's why I'm not going to let anybody inject me with anything. I'm not going to, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep a free spirit. And I'll always know it'll be fine. And that's kind of, I eat very healthily, extremely fit for my age. And I hope that continues. I've got a much younger girlfriend. I need to do. I wouldn't say much younger, a little bit younger.
Moving on. And you have a huge passion for donkeys, don't you? And
yes.
Was there another one that was born a couple of days ago, if I saw correctly?
So she's 4 now. We've got 6 foaling. Well, 5 now left. No, 6 left to foal, sorry. 7 altogether. And this little donk's been born. She's born to one of the younger Jennies, the younger mothers. So I haven't found out whether she's a Jack or a Jenny yet, whether she's a boy or a girl. Because the mother's been a bit skitty, I don't want to break that bond by rushing in and grabbing the Jenny, the baby donkey, and checking. So I'm leaving them until the weekend before I check. But they've formed a strong bond now. So everybody's saying, what are we going to name her? Well, I don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. So it's quite crucial to find that out first. And a lot of thinking of names like Hope, Joy, because of COVID, you know. So it's highly likely something like that will come along as naming this one. But I've got, that's my 17th donkey at the moment. I've sold over the years, but she's number 17 now. And the other 6 hopefully will have good births. They've had the best winter, the donkeys, this winter of all, because it's been very kind to them, the weather.
Yeah.
And they're very lucky. They're spoiled. They're on a big area of land on the small holding where I live. And I love them. They're very intuitive. They're great. I'm looking out of my balcony and there's the donkeys, you know, and they never cease to amaze. And they're just like us. When the sun shines, they get frisky and enjoy, and they bounce around like Bambis, you know, and then when it's raining, they don't like it. And if there's somebody I'm not sure of, I'll introduce them to my donkeys. You know, obviously with COVID restrictions, I can't do much of that now, but the way that they react to that person, I know exactly what personality that person is.
Wow.
And I know it sounds strange, but they're very intuitive. And I will even make decisions. I have made decisions on the back of that, whether I do a joint venture with somebody or not. I know it sounds a bit weird, but you know, if anybody's watching this, and I'm introducing you to my donkeys, there's more to it than meets the eye.
You've just given away one of your tests.
Yeah, donkey test.
But every time you talk about your donkeys, your face just lights up, which is just wonderful. So I know they give you a lot of enjoyment in terms of just having them there, don't they? So
well, I mean, Victoria now, she's knocking on. You know, they say how long do they live? Well, donkeys here. They're very well looked after. So I hope she goes on for a long time. She's in foal again. And you know, she's 38 now, which is
wow.
A donkey. You know, so yeah, they do. I started with one by accident, and best accident that ever happened. You know, that happened by accident as well. So that's how the whole donkey side of things developed. You know, and apart from our lovely dog, that's the only domesticated pet I have.
That's just wonderful. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. It's been a very interesting conversation, and I love having chats with you. So but this time we can share it with other people as well. So that's even more wonderful. So I really appreciate it.
For doing it. I just had to sit here and answer your questions, and I didn't know what was. I was trusting in you.
Well, I hope I've done what I needed to do then. So that's
Only the viewers will know that, won't they? But it's been a
that's
pleasure.
very true. That's very true. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Atuksha. Speak to you
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye.